A tragic story that shook America. A man crying in front of the camera, pleading for justice for his wife. But who would have thought that behind it all lay a great lie that was eventually uncovered? This is a story about a deception so carefully crafted, yet in the end, the truth still found its way. Here is the full story. On the night of November 30th, 2018, the Smith family spent time together in Baltimore, Maryland. Valeria Smith, who was 28 years old at the time, was celebrating her birthday with her father, Keith, and her stepmother, Jacquelyn, at the American Legion Hall. The atmosphere was filled with joy, food, drinks, dancing, and moments captured in photos. However, no one could have predicted that this joyful night would end in tragedy. On December 1st, 2018, at around 12:30 a.m., Keith Smith, who was 52 years old at the time, called 911 from inside his car. In a state of panic, he reported that his wife, Jacquelyn, had been stabbed and was gravely injured. She was sitting in the passenger seat, while Valeria, his stepdaughter, was in the back seat and witnessed the horrifying incident. Emergency responders advised Keith to take Jacquelyn to Johns Hopkins Hospital immediately. Unfortunately, despite the medical team's best efforts, Jacquelyn could not be saved. She had suffered 5 stab wounds and a slash wound on her lower arm. Before 1 a.m., she was pronounced dead after allegedly being brutally attacked by 2 individuals who had pretended to be panhandlers. Keith described the tragic moment. Jacquelyn just wanted to share kindness. When we stopped at a red light, she signaled the woman to come closer. Suddenly, a man appeared beside her, walking alongside the woman. He knocked on my car window. Jacquelyn then handed over some money, and the man asked, "May I thank your wife?" I replied, "Of course." But unexpectedly, within seconds, the man suddenly stabbed Jacquelyn. There was blood everywhere. It happened so fast and was absolutely horrifying. Jacquelyn Smith, born Jacquelyn Trevane, was from Providence, Rhode Island. She was born on July 4th, 1964, and was known as a cheerful child from an early age. As she grew older, she became a loving and compassionate woman who cared deeply for others. Music and poetry were 2 things she cherished deeply. At 54 years old, Jacquelyn had raised 2 sons. One was still in college, while the other had completed his education and joined the U.S. Coast Guard. Professionally, she had a successful career as an electrical engineer and worked for the Department of Defense in Maryland. She married Keith Smith in 2014. As a couple, they were active in church activities, and Jacquelyn was known for her strong faith and generous heart. Jackie was an incredible woman. Losing her in such a way is truly heartbreaking, said a close friend. A day after the heartbreaking incident, Keith and Valeria appeared before the media to warn the public to be more cautious of people who seem to be in need. Don't trust too easily because they might have bad intentions, they said. The police also issued a similar warning, reminding Baltimore residents to always stay vigilant. Keith added, "I want to tell everyone in Baltimore to be more careful when helping others. You never know their true intentions. After this incident, I see the world differently. Not everything is as it seems. Protect your family." Police further emphasized that some criminals used a tactic of pretending to be homeless or panhandlers to gain the sympathy of potential victims. Not everyone asking for help is truly in need. Some have malicious intentions, authorities stated. The tragedy that befell Jacquelyn Smith sparked widespread fear, not only in Baltimore but across the nation. News of the brutal murder spread rapidly, reaching national media outlets. Even Oprah Winfrey shared her thoughts, saying, "I've done this kind of act many times, but now I will be more cautious before doing it again." The police quickly released a description of the suspects: a man in his 30s with a thin beard and a woman pretending to be a struggling mother in need of help. They were believed to be criminals who targeted kind-hearted individuals, robbing and attacking them if necessary. As the investigation progressed, detectives met with Keith and Valeria at Johns Hopkins Hospital to gather an initial statement about the incident. They then proceeded to the 1000 block of Valley Street, the location identified as the crime scene, to secure evidence. However, something suspicious emerged. There were no signs of a struggle or attack at the scene. The next morning around 10 a.m., investigators returned to the area, hoping to uncover more evidence. They searched the surroundings, spoke with residents, and looked for clues to support Keith and Valeria's statements. However, not a single eyewitness could confirm that the incident had actually occurred there. Additionally, the murder weapon, a knife, was nowhere to be found. What further raised investigators' suspicions was that the supposed crime scene was not a bustling area or a known gathering spot for panhandlers. Most of the houses in the area were vacant, and foot traffic was rare. At this point, the investigation began to take a more suspicious turn. There was no sign of panic at the alleged crime scene, none at all. The 2012 Audi A7 belonging to Keith and Jacquelyn, which Keith had driven that night, was immediately taken from the hospital to police headquarters for further examination. Fingerprints found on the outside of the vehicle, specifically on the passenger side, were identified as Keith Smith's own. Aside from that, no other fingerprints provided additional clues. Inside the car, forensic teams discovered a pair of black gloves in the center console and a set of yellow rubber gloves in the back seat. A broken acrylic nail was found on the seat, seemingly matching the nails worn by Valeria Smith. However, no unknown DNA or fingerprints were present to help police identify the true perpetrator behind Jacquelyn's murder. Investigators continued to verify the truth behind Keith and his daughter's story, focusing on the route they claimed to have taken. The FBI also joined the investigation, attempting to retrieve GPS data from the Audi's onboard computer, but their efforts yielded no results. With no solid leads, the Baltimore police struggled to advance the case. The Homeless Outreach Team, HOT team, was also brought in to gather information based on the descriptions provided by Keith and Valeria. However, despite utilizing multiple resources, they failed to locate any suspects matching the given profiles. "I just want anyone with information to help us find the person responsible for this," said a family member. The main challenge for investigators was the lack of physical evidence to confirm the actual location of the incident. To reconstruct the events of that night, they began collecting CCTV footage from various points across the city to track the Smith family's movements. Footage from the American Legion Hall on Madison Avenue showed the Smith family leaving the building at 11:45 p.m. Police then reviewed recordings from 27 surveillance cameras along the route Keith claimed they had taken, from the Legion Hall to Valley Street near Valeria's home. However, not a single video captured their Audi in the area. Additionally, motion-activated security cameras in residential areas failed to record any incident or the presence of Keith Smith's vehicle, including on East Chase Street and East Edgar Street. As the next step, investigators analyzed Keith and Valeria's cell phone data to determine their whereabouts on the night of the incident. The results were startling. Keith's phone showed no activity from that night until he called 911 after the stabbing. However, Valeria's phone data told a different story. Instead of heading south to drop Valeria off, as they had claimed to police, cell tower records revealed that they had actually turned north. Their phones were tracked in Druid Hill Park, near the Maryland Zoo, for about 15 minutes. A detail that Keith and Valeria had never mentioned to investigators. Not only that, but police also investigated the activity of Jacquelyn's cell phone, which had been reported stolen. Strangely, the phone was last detected as active at her home in Aberdeen around 4 p.m. on the day of the incident. This contradicted Keith and Valeria's claim that Jacquelyn had carried her phone with her throughout the night. There was no evidence that the phone had ever left her home. In the days following the murder, police searched pawn shops across the city for Jacquelyn's supposedly missing belongings, her necklace, wallet, and phone, but came up empty-handed. Then, a week and a half after the incident, investigators discovered suspicious activity on Jacquelyn's Visa card. Someone had used it. The detective team eventually tracked down 3 teenage boys who claimed they had found the stolen card inside a Michael Kors wallet abandoned at a bus stop on the corner of Caroline Street and Madison Avenue. Initially, the teens were detained as potential suspects. However, after further investigation, they were released. Investigators confirmed that the bus stop was actually along the real route Keith and Valeria had taken after leaving the Legion, a route different from the one they had reported to police. After 3 months
The
of
great woman,
investigation,
she's
the
sending
Baltimore detective team
a
found
car for
no
me to
evidence
come to
whatsoever
City Hall to see
linking a
her.
homeless couple to
So
Jacquelyn's murder. Instead, they uncovered the numerous inconsistencies in the Smith family's statements. For example, at the hospital, Keith initially claimed that a homeless man had reached into the car and stolen Jacquelyn's wallet. But later he changed his story, saying that the perpetrator was actually a homeless woman. A man approached and asked, "Can I say thank you to her?" When I allowed it, he suddenly started stabbing my wife. He also snatched her necklace, while the woman grabbed a small wallet from the seat. Then they both ran away. Double asterisk. At first, Keith was very vocal in the media, warning the public to be more cautious around the city's homeless population. However, just a week after the case gained national attention, Keith suddenly disappeared from the spotlight and stopped giving interviews. When police confronted him with location data that contradicted his claims, Keith changed his story once again. He admitted that he had gotten lost that night, but felt too embarrassed to say so. According to him, they had stopped at the park to look through the photos they had taken earlier on their phones. Shortly after that interview, Keith abruptly packed up and left. He rented a house in Florida on a 1-year lease, hired a moving truck, and left the state on February 4th. One night, he showed up with a big moving truck. The next day, he quickly packed up his belongings and left. After that, we never saw him again. Double asterisk. When Valeria was interrogated, she immediately requested a lawyer, bringing the interview to an abrupt end. Not long after, she also left Maryland to join her father. Authorities became convinced that Keith was trying to flee, and they began tracking him. Keith seemed aware that he was being watched. He attempted to evade phone surveillance by changing numbers, switching service providers, and even sending Valeria a new phone. However, police stayed one step ahead, closely monitoring his every move. In February 2019, Keith attempted to book 2 international flights, one to Canada and another to Cuba. However, his efforts failed because he did not have a U.S. passport. Realizing that he could fly to the U.S. Virgin Islands using only a driver's license, Keith began looking for ways to enter Mexico without crossing an official border checkpoint. On March 1st, Keith rented a car in Texas, which immediately caught the attention of Baltimore police. 2 days later, an arrest warrant was issued for both Keith and his daughter. On March 3rd at 11:15 a.m., they were found just 20 minutes from the Mexican border, confirming their intent to flee from first-degree murder charges. Keith's lawyer argued that traveling to Mexico was not a crime. However, on the same day the warrant was issued, Keith and Valeria Smith were arrested by Texas authorities. Investigators worked meticulously to uncover the facts behind this case. The arrest warrant did not immediately explain how Keith and his daughter committed the murder, but highlighted numerous lies they told the police. They also failed to identify any other potential suspects. A friend of Keith's brother, Vic, revealed that Keith had previously sought help to get rid of his wife. A few months before her death, Jacquelyn had discussed divorce, which Keith opposed because he wanted to claim her life insurance, where he was still listed as the primary beneficiary. Just 2 days after the murder, Keith went straight to Jacquelyn's workplace to process the insurance claim. However, the insurance company, already alerted by the police, froze the payout. This gave Jacquelyn's 2 sons time to contest the inheritance in court. During his time on the run, Keith struggled financially. He even attempted to apply for a loan using an American Express credit card, but his request was denied. Many people were not surprised when it was revealed that the story about a murder committed by homeless individuals was a lie. Jacquelyn's mother, who lived in Rhode Island, had never believed Keith's claims from the beginning. "From the start, I felt that the story didn't make sense. I never believed it," she said. Jacquelyn's family also reported that they were never close to Keith. They may not have been aware of his criminal record. 20 years earlier, Keith had committed 3 armed bank robberies at the same bank. In December 1999, after losing his job at FedEx and discovering that he was HIV positive, Keith faced severe financial difficulties. He then robbed the First Union Bank on York Road in Towson, wearing a ski mask and carrying an air pistol. In his first robbery, he stole around $15,000, followed by $6,000 in his second attempt. However, during his third robbery, police had already identified the vehicle he used. After a high-speed chase in East Baltimore, Keith was finally arrested. Keith was sentenced to 12 years in prison, but served only 6 years. When police searched his home, they found around $20,000 in cash hidden in a black bag. Valeria Smith, Keith's daughter, was charged as an accomplice to murder. Although her exact role in the crime was not entirely clear, she was proven to have helped cover up the crime. Valeria had a history of mental health issues. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and had been hospitalized in 2012. Additionally, she struggled with heroin addiction. Because of her condition, prosecutors offered her a plea deal. Her attorney stated that she had only helped her father dispose of evidence, including the knife and Jacquelyn's belongings. Valeria also claimed that she had been forced to lie by her father but now wanted to tell the truth. The trial of Keith Smith took place in late 2021. During the proceedings, Valeria testified that after celebrating her birthday, her father took their family to Druid Hill Park. While Jacquelyn was asleep in the front seat of the car, Keith stabbed her 5 times before discarding the knife in the woods. After that, Keith handed Jacquelyn's purse to Valeria and ordered her to dispose of it. One of the purses was left at a bus stop and later found by a group of teenagers. The story about a homeless person robbing and killing Jacquelyn was a lie fabricated by Keith and forced upon Valeria to believe. During the trial, Keith's lawyer accused Valeria of being more actively involved in the murder and claimed she was lying to save herself. However, Valeria firmly insisted that she was not guilty of the murder. In December 2021, Keith Smith was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. The judge declared that Keith was a manipulative individual who used deception to mislead the public, the media, and even his own daughter, who was struggling with drug addiction. A month after her father's sentencing, Valeria was also sentenced to 5 years in prison for her involvement in covering up the murder. Jacquelyn's family felt relieved that justice had finally been served. "I already knew this story was just a charade. I knew Keith was lying, and I was just waiting for justice to come," said one of Jacquelyn's family members. Thus ends the story of Keith Smith and the web of lies he spun about a murder committed by a homeless person. Justice has finally been served. Keith Smith received a life sentence, and his daughter also had to face the consequences of her involvement. All the lies he carefully constructed eventually collapsed in the face of undeniable facts. This case serves as a reminder that the truth will always find its way, no matter how deeply it is buried beneath deception. What do you think about this case? Do you believe Keith Smith received a fair punishment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories. See you in the next video.